In part 1 of Panther Chameleons in the Wild, we looked into how panther chameleons are living in disturbed habitats right in the middle of neighborhoods, and how they are also living in some of the most remote areas in Madagascar. But now, in part 2 of Panther Chameleons in the Wild, we're going to look into breeding behavior here in the wild, as well as discuss things like UV lighting, temperature, microclimates, and further look into how panther chameleons are living out here in the wild so that we better know how to care for them in our homes. I'm Dave Kaufman, and these are my reptile adventures. So here in a more naturalistic setting for panther chameleons, this is the color variant that you're gonna find here. But you can see the difference in color patterns from the regional color variants that panther chameleons have. This one has a lot more reds, just a little hint of green in the back there, lots of nice powder blue colors, that white lateral stripe. But as you can see, the color variants of panther chameleons are varied depending on where you are in Madagascar. And of course, we all know the Nosy Bay chameleons for having those really rich blues and those really electric colors. But here on the east coast of Madagascar, right on the Indian Ocean, this is the color variant that you're gonna find here. All right, so let's test out the body temperature of this male. And look at that right on him. He is at 89 degrees Fahrenheit, which is 31 degrees Celsius. That is his body temperature right now. So let's take a look at the humidity and the ambient temperature where this male panther chameleon is sitting. We're gonna go over here. He's gonna bite my probe. But look at that, 85% humidity at 27 degrees Celsius, which is 81 degrees Fahrenheit. And that is the surface temperature, ambient temperature, and humidity where this male panther chameleon is hanging out in this tree right now. Bill?
Oh, well, hello there.
I think this is a good opportunity for us to talk about microclimates.
Oh, okay, excellent. Well, okay, so you see a lot of us taking temperature data out here in the wild, and you're wondering probably, well, what do you do with these numbers? We need to be very careful how we interpret the data that we're taking here, because these chameleons out here in the wild are able to find a multitude of microclimates. I mean, this panther right here, he probably can find within the 10 feet here 200 different microclimates of temperature, humidity. And so when we see him sitting out in the sun, we need to realize that he may only want to be there for 1 minute to warm up, and then he goes off to a cooler place.
Exactly.
So, the reason why we have to be very careful is because when we create a cage in our house, we probably have reduce their microclimates to about 5. And so that is why those of us in herpetoculture are so obsessive about finding the ideal conditions, because in captivity, we reduce their options drastically. And so coming out here, taking data, very important, but also we have to interpret it correctly or else to effectively use it.
So what Bill just said is absolutely 100% correct. Of course it is. That's Bill Strand, one of the foremost authorities on chameleons. But it just illustrates how important microclimates are to the health and overall well-being of your panther chameleons at home. And therefore, for enclosures for your panther chameleons, think big. And the reason to think big is so that you can have a lot of places for him to climb, a lot of places for him to retreat, and a lot of places for your chameleon to take advantage of microclimates within your enclosures. It's imperative to have a hot spot that he can warm up, but he can also retreat to different temperatures within your enclosure to take advantage of the microclimates that you are giving your chameleon in your enclosures. And the only way to do that, to give your chameleon all those different microclimates, all those different temperatures that it needs, is to have a rather large enclosure for your panther chameleons. So with that being said, let's talk a little bit about temperature drops at night. So for nighttime temperatures, let's take a quick look at what the nighttime ambient temperature and humidity is here in the panther chameleon's habitat. And look at that, 84% humidity at 26 degrees Celsius, which is 79.5 degrees Fahrenheit. But the temperatures remain almost constant, just a few degrees cooler than it is during the day. Zilla has everything you need for your reptile pets, from caging to lighting and everything in between. To see their entire catalog and find out where you can get Zilla products near you, visit zillarules.com. So talk about color variance in Panther Chameleons. Look at this female who is trying to bite me and is extremely surly right now. But have a look at how different this female Panther Chameleon looks. Look at that orange dotted lateral line and those really dark colors. This is not what we think of. Come here, buddy. No, don't bite my shirt. This is not what we think of when we think about how beautiful and colorful Panther Chameleons are. But this girl really illustrates just how varied the colors and patterns of Panther Chameleons are from region to region here in Madagascar. And look at this. No sooner was I filming that female Panther Chameleon than there are two Indries sitting in this tree right above me. I didn't even know we're there. Madagascar is so amazing, and look at that. She's got a baby with her. And, oh, that's a little uncouth there, sister. So UV light is extremely important for your chameleon. And it's one of those things that is often used incorrectly or overlooked completely. But how much UV light actually gets through this canopy to be down here where the chameleons live? Well, I've got my solar meter. We're gonna take a UV reading to see what the UV is here in the forests where the chameleons actually live. So a reading here in the forest, you can see that the UV is only 0.1 on the Furcifer zone. And in direct sunlight, look at that, 6.4, 6.5 on the Furcifer zone here in a clearing in the forest. So again, UV light is critical for the health of your Panther Chameleon or other chameleons that you're keeping, and it is one of those components in keeping chameleons that is often misunderstood and therefore overlooked or used improperly. So when we talked about microclimates within your enclosures, it's also important to have microclimates of UV radiation. There should be higher readings at one point in the cage, lower readings at another point in the cage, so that your chameleon can choose how much UV light they need to absorb. Higher at one point, lower at another point within your enclosures. Okay, so right here,
So the baby was found, right behind you.
okay, so just to recap here,
There he
is. So look at this. We may have come across a Panther Chameleon nursery of sorts. So this is what the ground looks like that Panther Chameleons are using to deposit their eggs. It's this loamy, loose, sandy soil here. And do you think that that's
I have
where?
no idea. I found this as disturbed area. The thing is, with one of these little babies, I found this sand, some of this sand stuck to it. That indicates that it just hatched.
Yes.
And so right now I am looking to see if I can find some area here which has this white sand that's disturbed, because they all hatch at the same time. It helps with crawling out and digging out. And then of course when they get out, predators will only get a couple of them.
Safety in numbers.
Yes. So what I'm doing is I'm just scouring the forest floor, hoping to be able to find this site, because if I can dig down and see how far down those eggs are laid, that's going to be a huge data point for those of us in the chameleon community, because you can imagine how hard it is to find nesting sites of chameleons in this big forest.
Well, even that we know, I mean, we see babies here, we see holes in the ground here.
I'm not sure I'm going to stick my finger in there.
Yeah, right. But we see holes here in the ground, and obviously it's these sandy patches right here where the soil is nice and moist and loose. And this is more than likely where Panther Chameleons are laying their eggs. But finding a nest is the proverbial needle in a haystack here.
Yeah, you can see how when I dig here, it's easy to dig through. And so we're going to be looking for soil that is very easily drained. We don't want to, the Panther Chameleon is not going to want to have her eggs drowned. And
absolutely.
So looking for this nice, easily draining soil, and it's as easy for the babies to crawl out of. But I'd love to find the actual site that these babies that we just found, that just hatched, came out of.
But seriously, we have seen several babies crawling on these plants here. Some of them even are covered with sand, which means that they just came out of the ground within the past, let's just say, hour, maybe minutes before we got here. This is incredible. I don't know that we can actually find the nest, but we're certainly going to look for them. So guys, right there is something absolutely miraculous. That is a female panther chameleon in the process of digging a nest. Look at that. So Bill, we were right. They are, in fact, using this loose soil for nesting.
Okay, we have found in the middle of this trail a female pardalis who is starting to dig and lay her eggs. This is an amazing find, and it gives you an idea. They will dig just about anywhere, but you notice the kind of soil that she's digging through. It's very sandy, so there's going to be a great drainage there for her eggs. I would absolutely love to come back and figure out how deep she laid her eggs, but we're just I'm not going to disturb them. Maybe we can come back and see when she's laying them, how much her body is up out of the ground, but that's about as much as we'll do because I don't want to disturb her work.
And it looks like she just started here, and she's got a long way to go before this nest is finished. But what she's going to do is she's going to dig down a couple inches. She's going to deposit maybe 20 to 30 eggs, and she's going to press it down and compact it with her back legs. To be here and actually witness this behavior in panther chameleons in the wild, this could be the first time that this has ever been filmed in the wild. So we're not going to disturb her because I don't want to spook her off of her nest, because for a chameleon to dig a nest as far down as she has, it's a lot of work. And if we spook her, of course she's maybe going to come back to this nest. She'll certainly dig a new one if she doesn't come back to this one, but we don't want to do that. But just to sit here and watch this behavior in panther chameleons in the wild is just absolutely amazing. And not only that, but the data that Bill Strand is getting from watching this behavior and studying this behavior is immeasurable. And so I encourage all of you to check out the Chameleon Academy. I'm going to put those links in the description below. But man, this is truly a once-in-a-lifetime experience to see this in the wild. So this is Alec Brown, DVM. Like 5 of us just walked past that and you saw it. That's like a couple of times that this has happened on this trip.
Always looking down.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm always looking up so I don't hit my head. So I hope that this 2-part series on panther chameleons in the wild have given you some insight into how the world's most popular pet chameleon is living out here in the wild. But what we've learned is that it's imperative to give your chameleons, whether it be panther chameleons or other species of chameleons, microclimates within their enclosures, both in temperature and in UV. So if you haven't watched part 1 yet, I encourage you to check that video out as well. So as always with the In the Wild series, leave a comment below with a tip or a technique on how you guys are keeping panther chameleons at home so that other people can learn from you as well. And as always, thanks for watching, and until the next reptile adventure, love the planet, feed your reptile obsession, and rattle on.